A jury has found FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried guilty in his closely watched fraud trial. The former crypto king was charged with 2 counts of fraud and 5 counts of conspiracy. Over the month-long trial, prosecutors argued Bankman-Fried stole billions of dollars from customers to back his crypto-focused hedge fund, Alameda Research. FTX declared bankruptcy a year ago, with customers racing to withdraw funds. The collapse shocked cryptocurrency markets. Bankman-Fried faces more than 100 years in prison.
In a landmark verdict, with the 12 members of the jury only requiring about 4.5 hours of deliberation, Sam Bankman-Fried, the former CEO of cryptocurrency exchange FTX, has been found guilty on all charges, 7 out of 7, in the FTX fraud trial. A tentative sentencing date has been set for March 28, 2024. Sam Bankman-Fried could spend decades in prison and potentially his whole life, as it's up to 115 years for this 31-year-old criminal. Justice has been served for the cryptocurrency community. Hit the like button, share this video with a friend, and what a fall from grace it has been. Larry David tried to warn us.
Like I was saying, it's FTX. It's a safe and easy way to get into crypto.
I don't think so. And I'm never wrong about this stuff. Never.
It's truly surprising, yet amazing, that it only took the jury about 4.5 hours to reach a consensus and convict SBF on 7 out of 7 counts.
I gotta say, for a relatively complicated fraud, white-collar case where you're looking at numbers and books, 4.5 hours on every count is wow.
This is stunning that it was so quick, and it speaks to the fact that the government rolled up. They took his closest confidants, his ex-girlfriend who worked for him, the top lieutenants in his company. They all cooperated with the government, and they turned on him. And what was stunning was, in the last week, that Sam Bankman-Fried, who, is not necessarily the best communicator, doesn't present well, chose to take the stand. And what did the prosecution do? Hit him right between the eyes and showed up with receipts. They used his own words and his own lieutenant's proof and said, no, sir, this is what you did.
The jury deliberation was so short. This was such a simple decision for the jury. Props to the prosecution and the way they presented it to the jury. Listen to CNBC's legal analyst explain all this.
The jury found it more simple than complicated, John, and that is because the prosecutors were very smart about how they presented it. You did not have to understand how cryptocurrency works. You did not have to understand even what it was, because in order to do that, you would have to have been taught a very arcane subject. It's a subject that most of us really do not understand. So what the prosecution did was it looked at it in the aggregate and really made it simple. Fraud is fraud. Stealing is stealing. If you have access to billions of dollars of other people's money, and you decide that you're going to use it for your own purposes, that is a multi-million-dollar home in the Bahamas, political donations, charitable donations, financing your lifestyle, that what the government made it look like was just apparently what the jurors believed. It was stealing, it was fraud, and he intended to do it. It was not something that was so esoteric that he somehow was in above his head and he made a mistake, which was his defense.
I just wish I could have seen SBF's face as the verdict was revealed. I just wish I could have seen SBF's parents' face. Listen to this journalist's recap of everybody's reaction right after it happened, how they were feeling, what did they act like.
John, I can tell you, after stepping outside the courtroom where Sam Bankman-Fried stood and learned his fate, he was reactionless, standing stoically as the floor person read the jury's decision. Guilty on all 7 counts, one by one, unanimous decisions. I have the actual verdict in my hands here, and Sam Bankman-Fried's parents were seated about 2 rows in front of me, holding each other in anticipation of this verdict. As soon as each verdict was read, guilty, one after another, I watched as Sam Bankman-Fried's father's head fell into his hands and then effectively into his lap as his wife, Mr. Bankman-Fried's mother, put her arm around him. So his parents certainly showed a level of devastation and shock from this ruling. Sam Bankman-Fried himself appeared emotionless as he now found out that this jury of 12 New Yorkers over the past 5+ weeks heard his testimony and didn't believe him, and returned a verdict which found that, in their view, he did not tell the truth and he is a fraud.
And did you see this? The attorney and prosecution team has a message to any other fraudster, any other huckster still out there. Chills.
But you can see them, the entire prosecution team lined up here outside of 500 Pearl Street. Here comes Damian Williams. He is the, let's see, we'll go right to him. He's about to give a press conference here.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Damian Williams, and I'm the United States Attorney here in the Southern District of New York. Sam Bankman-Fried perpetrated one of the biggest financial frauds in American history, a multi-billion-dollar scheme designed to make him the king of crypto. But here's the thing. The cryptocurrency industry might be new. The players like Sam Bankman-Fried might be new. But this kind of fraud, this kind of corruption is as old as time, and we have no patience for it. When I became U.S. Attorney, I promised that we would be relentless in rooting out corruption in our financial markets. This is what relentless looks like. This case moved at lightning speed. That was not a coincidence, that was a choice. And it's also a message. It's a warning, this case, to every single fraudster out there who thinks that they're untouchable, or that their crimes are too complex for us to catch, or that they're too powerful for us to prosecute, or that they could try to talk their way out of it when they get caught. Those folks should think again and cut it out. And if they don't, I promise we'll have enough handcuffs for all of them.
So why was it so easy for the jury to convict SBF? 7 out of 7. Why was it so easy? They only took 4 hours. I'll tell you why. SBF's proclivity to thinking that he can talk his way out of any situation sunk him. His own team put him on the stand, a Hail Mary move, usually against best practices, and while he somewhat held up against his own team's questioning, when they switched to cross-examination, SBF flopped, and the jury saw through him. Listen, I love the way this reporter describes it.
What's interesting, John, is watching the testimony over the past several weeks, it was clear that from the prosecution standpoint, they had a slam-dunk case, effectively. You had 3 of Sam Bankman-Fried's lieutenants pleading guilty to the charges of money laundering and fraud. Each of them took the witness stand to detail how first, when they found out that customer money was being used to fortify all these other funds and projects, they disagreed with it. They brought it up to Sam Bankman-Fried, and he told them each step of the way to keep going. But when Sam Bankman-Fried took the stand in his own defense, which was an incredibly brazen thing to do, considering that he put himself at risk and made himself susceptible to the very well-prepared cross-examination from the prosecution, it was clear that his behavior in front of the defense, when they delicately walked him through how it was overwhelming for him and how, in good faith, he didn't realize he was misusing funds. But when the prosecution gave him pointed questions based on the testimony, based on the evidence, based on his own words to the press, to investors, and to the general public through his tweets and voluminous interviews that he did with just about everybody, he couldn't remember things. Ultimately, in closing arguments, John, it came down to this. The prosecution said when Sam Bankman-Fried was being, asked questions by the defense, he knew things. He was quick. He was knowledgeable. He was speaking in a very long-winded, with sentences. He could define 50 separate terms. But his demeanor completely changed under cross-examination, they said more than 140 times he couldn't remember details, conversations, or the allegations that he was up against. It is apparent that to the jury made it seem as if he wasn't telling the truth, which means he perjured himself on the stand. The judge continuously had to interrupt him and say, just answer the question, and it appears he did himself no favors. The man known for taking massive risks on the off chance that maybe things would collapse, but perhaps there's a huge upside, took a gamble on his own fate here during this trial, and it most certainly did not pay off.
So it's just crazy. Everybody, including the jury, saw right through SBF's lies and his obvious deceit.
But I think it's crazy. He said he didn't know that the hedge fund Alameda that he was chief executive of was giving $8 billion to FTX, the other company that he was the head of. Of course he knew. I mean, come on, obviously.
I just hope that people realize that this fraud is just basic fraud and has absolutely nothing to do with crypto itself.
The core of the crime was not complex, right?
Okay, you just hit everything. Because people from the outside are like, oh, crypto, I don't get it.
No,
this isn't about crypto.
No.
Right? It's about stealing.
Yoink.
It is about saying,
Yes.
uh-oh, I'm losing money over here. I got all these customer funds over here.
Got deposits
I'm just gonna move. Exactly. I'm going to move A and stick it over to B. Right?
Ding, ding, ding. You have just
fraud
explained
in the
crime.
right? Sam Bankman-Fried, right there. Right. This isn't about how crypto works and the market went up and a margin call. Right.
Guys, make sure you subscribe to our channel. We're going to keep you updated with this and everything in crypto, like always. We'll end things with this. Independent journalist Tiffany Fong, she used to visit SBF and he used to give her exclusive interviews. She asked him before the trial ever happened, what do you think about the possibility of spending the rest of your life in prison? This is what he said.
If you hypothetically were in prison for life.
Try not to think about it. I don't think it's helpful to think about. And when I do ruminate, like my ruminations are half ruminations, half daydreams, and they always have some component of like ways that I can make things, better, ways that I can do something for the world, ways that I can like have some impact. If my life ended now, I would almost certainly have done net harm to the world. And it's hard to spin that.
How does that thought weigh on you? Like, is that something like...
Sorry, it doesn't weigh on me that people think I've done that harm. The fact that I have done that harm weighs enormously on me.